Sometimes you don't know what you have until it's gone. That's exactly how it feels when I see Jimmy Buckets go there in Boston and do what he's done and absolutely will this shamble of a team to the Eastern Conference Finals. That's led to this whole thing of where we have to sit here and have this conversation. Is the trading of Jimmy Butler one of the biggest, or at least top three, mistakes in the Bulls franchise history? Man, let's talk about it. Listen, if you haven't been living under a rock, it's your boy P Kid. Man, listen, it's been a whirlwind of news when it comes to the Chicago Bulls. First, we have all these particular doubts. We don't maintain the picks. We kind of figured that we wouldn't, but at the end of the day, we wanted to have some type of hope. And now it's like, yo, what are we doing? What's really about to happen? What's really about to shake? Because we've made some moves. AK has come to actually try to make some moves, and I've actually applauded him on being gutsy enough to make some of these moves, but it hasn't worked out. We're still middle of the pack to bottom of the pack. I mean, we're a freaking playing team with no actual hope of actually progressing out. What's shaking right now? What is happening? And now that you sit back and you look at some of the pieces that have gone on, that have worn Bulls jerseys and moved on to other situations and thrived, you have to ask, was it them or was it us? And when it's happened to enough players, sometimes you have to look inwardly. It's us. The trade for for Zach LaVine is not one that I'm going to look at and probably make these grand statements on. However, when you look at what we are missing, who we're looking for on this Bulls team, you can't sit there and tell me you don't look at Jimmy Buckets and say, hey, Jimmy G gives me everything that I wanted. Jimmy G gives me the leadership that I want Zach LaVine to have. Jimmy G gives me the playmaking ability that I want Zach LaVine to have. He gives me the veteran leadership that I want DeMar DeRozan to bring to this table and actually help us with our young crew. You can't tell me that Jimmy G, that one guy, doesn't embody and encapsulate everything that you wanted Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan to do for our team. There's just no way in the world you look at that situation. There's no way you look at what he's been doing, who he's been doing it with, mind you, and say, yeah, that was a good trade. There's no way. I don't believe anyone that sits there and says that. Now, hindsight is always 2020, and we can't really complain about spilled milk. I can't blame AK for it. We were a trash organization, but at a certain point, you have to look inwardly. Because apparently we can draft kind of well. I mean, we drafted a guy named Michael Jordan. I know that was early on in Jerry, and we had all that stuff. But I mean, we got 6 rings out of not just the greatest of all time, right? We've drafted some other players. We've drafted Derrick Rose, but we've drafted Jimmy G, and yet we've only had one success story in the last 30 years. And realistically, I guess you could say two. But when we find ourselves in this elongated stance, I mean, we have to put this into perspective. Since we traded Jimmy for Zach LaVine, we've only been to the playoffs once. That was last year. How many times has he been? Every year. And even if you take away the teams that were drastically better than the Chicago Bulls, there have been some teams where he's been on where you couldn't even you wouldn't bet me money that we couldn't beat them. You wouldn't. We could beat the team that's in the finals now. I firmly believe we have the talent on the Chicago Bulls to beat that particular team. But you know what? We also don't have the people with the right mentality. We don't have the same tenacity that they have because they have a culture. They have a culture. They built a culture in that organization. Miami has built a culture of trust and hard work, and it starts from the top down. And so now we start to evolve this conversation from, is this the biggest mistake, to now, what do we have to do to start developing winning culture again? Because that's what's missing in Chicago. We don't have a winning identity because we don't have people who put in winning, who have that winning mentality, in my opinion, the same way that we see it in other cities. Because guess what, Chicago, as much as we love to sit there and say we're Michael Jordan a town, we saw The Last Dance. You want that same energy. You know what it takes to get that same energy? A player like Jimmy G. A player with that same mentality, a player with that same tenacity, a player with that's just gonna sit there and tell you exactly what it is and what for and dare you to do something about it. Someone who's not afraid to get in your behind and actually make tell you and dare you to do something about it. We don't have that in Chicago. It's a culture. Some would say that that's a toxic culture. I don't care. Winning don't sound toxic to me. Winning is winning, and I want to win. So if we have to sit there and scrap, let's scrap because I want to win. We don't have those people in the door anymore. Jimmy G is the last of a dying breed. And so when I look back and I look at again what we got, what's happened since then, we lost that trade. Minnesota lost their trade. Philly lost their trade. Miami has absolutely won. Even without a ring, they've won because with less talent, they've done more than Philly. With less talent, they've done more than Minnesota. And with less talent, in my opinion, they've done more than the Chicago Bulls ever since acquiring. And he's done nothing but increase his stock as a player. This was, again, maybe not the biggest mistake in Bulls history. I'm not going to go that far. Not even going to say it's top two. I'm thinking of another one. But I can put it at 3. I can put it at 3 confidently. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I really don't care at this point. It's my opinion. That's why I made the video. I'll live with that. But in my opinion, this was, again, hindsight being 2020. You look at it down the line, we lost that trade. The only caveat to this is Zach LaVine has 5 years and he has the money behind it. And now that money, that investment is going to actually demand that the Bulls put the right pieces around him so he can take the leap that we need to see. That does not mean that he has the same dog in him that DeMar DeRozan asks. I don't think he does. I think there's very few people who have that type of dog in them. KD doesn't even have that dog in him. He's a much better player. KD's a top 15 generational talent. You probably never see another KD. He don't have that type of dog in him. He don't. Jason Tatum don't have that dog in him. Don't. I don't think Embiid has that dog in him, if I'm being honest. There's a lot of people who are freakishly talented, who are really good, who are probably going to be Hall of Famers that do not have what Jimmy G has, and that's exactly what we want in the Chicago Bulls jersey. It's exactly what we've been missing for the last 20 some odd years. Is what we've been missing since Derrick Rose. We all remember, quiet assassin. He felt like he was better because he was better. He had that dog in him. He didn't have to talk. He didn't have to be loud. His game showed that. But he also had people around him to enforce that and things of that nature. They built the culture. Joakim Noah, guess what? That was our Draymond Green. If you really want to think about it, that was a culture, top to bottom. They had the right people there to put this thing in motion so that we can get further and have opportunity. We don't have that here. It's a culture problem. It's an AK problem. It's a Billy Donovan problem. It's not just on the players. There's some people who just solely say, well, the players have to do this. Shut up. That's not. It starts from the top as well. Top to bottom, you have to change everything. And everyone has to be going in the same direction at the same time. And someone has to lead that. Someone has to lead that. Because right now, we don't have it. So Billy Donovan's on the hot seat for me. AK's on the hot seat for me. And at this point, hey, listen, what did Jerry say to the team? Said to him, you didn't get your investment out of it. You bought it for like a back. You bought it as a what? A can of Arizona. What did you get for it? Like this wasn't even your initial investment. Look at what you got. Sell the team. It's time. Because we need to get back to winning basketball. We need to get back to the same players that we need to stop being known for trading off these players and they going off and doing amazing things and us just sitting there on the sideline like, Dad, he was in the Bulls jersey, wasn't he? Tired of doing that. Tired. But I want to hear your thoughts, man. I want to hear your frustrations too. I want to hear what you think are the biggest mistakes in Bulls history. And I think, hey, Nikola Vucevic might be up there. When you look at that trade, that might be up there. But I want to hear your thoughts, man. I'll be in there with you. Again, you don't know what you have until it's gone. Right now, we know exactly what we don't have. Jimmy G. Till next time.